2019. Pat, when you're ready, could you please take a roll call?
Clark. Hendrickson. Here. Reed. Here. Tylen.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
All present.
If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Item number 4 is to approve the agenda. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Thank you. Correspondence and Communications. I saw no one signed up back there for this first meeting. Was there anyone present that wished to speak tonight that didn't get a chance to sign up? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items tonight. Council regular meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2019, and also an application to consider and take action on the Columbus Country Club change of agent for Christopher G. Foraker. The application is in the packet. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? If none, I'll entertain any motion from the council.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. On to new business. Consider mayoral appointments to the Municipal Court Ad Hoc Committee. Ed Johnson, Regan Hendrickson, and Andy Traxler. As discussed at the last meeting, these appointments need to occur to get the Municipal Ad Hoc Committee together to help form the creation of the new court. Ed Johnson's typically here watching the meeting in person. He's not here tonight. And then council members Regan Hendrickson and Andy Traxler both served on the Municipal Court Committee for the Joint Courts. So unless there's any questions, I'll entertain any motions from the council.
Motion to approve the mayoral appointments to the Municipal Court Ad Hoc Committee as read.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the mayoral appointments to the Municipal Ad Hoc Committee as read. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 4, review and consider bids and recommendations from the wastewater treatment plant sludge holding tank aeration blower replacement. We went through this at the committee of the whole at the last meeting. I believe the recommendation was to accept the bid of $98,400 for Ahern Company to receive that bid. Jason is here if anyone has any questions. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any motion from the council.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from JF Ahern and Company for $98,400 for the wastewater treatment plant sludge holding tank aeration blower replacement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the bid from Ahern for the sludge holding tank project. Any discussion on that? If none, could we please take a roll call on that, Pat?
Clark. Hendrickson.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Tylen.
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. On to number 5, which is consider and take action on change order number 2 for the Hall Road project. This information was also brought to the council at the last committee of the whole meeting for the change in that project. I believe the amount there was for $25,560. If there's any further questions on that change order, we have Jason here this evening. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any action from the council.
Make a motion to approve the change order number 2 for the Hall Road project.
Have a motion and a second to approve the change order number 2 for the Hall Road project. Any further discussion on that motion? If none, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Hendrickson.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Tylen.
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Clark. Unanimous.
Thank you. Number 6, consider and take action on the banner art contest for downtown light poles. Matt Schreiber's here. He discussed this with the council at the last committee of the whole meeting about having a banner art contest for banners for the downtown poles. Matt, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a brief update. I did send in your packets the current rules and then the current banner. There were some questions on the banner last time, and I followed up with Becky to get the most current information. And also wanted to provide, just as a frame of reference, the last page is the preferred banner layout that the group, you can see it circled. I hope yours is in color. I can't tell. Mine's black and white that I printed. So it's a pretty simple, the artwork would go in the middle, and obviously it'd say welcome to Columbus instead of Rib Lake. But just wanted to show you what the banner design, or the preferred banner design is at this moment. So any questions?
Andy?
Yeah, I just had one question. So once this contest is, they've turned in their artwork and you decide, what's going to be done, like which ones are going to be chosen, is that going to come to council for formal approval on which banners are?
They could. I mean, at this point, we were, it was going to be, the task force was going to come down to the finalists, and I would have no issue with that.
Any further questions? Thanks for the additional information.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
One quick, now are we just going to have, is there one winner, or are we going to have different, like how many different designs are you thinking for all these banners?
It's going to be, I said previously a few, but after getting quotes from banners, it's probably going to be like 3, mainly because if you have 35, because there's only 35 banners in the downtown, so if you have 35 different ones, it's like the cost goes out considerably. So at a certain point, we're just going to have to pick get it down to a few finalists and then go from there.
Any further questions for Matt while he's up? Seeing none, thank you, Matt. My assumption with that as well will be that once the contest is done, that since this is a donation, it'll have to be accepted by the city, so that would be the last step. So, all right, unless there's any further questions, I'll entertain any motion on the banner art contest for the downtown light poles.
Make a motion to approve the contest and the rules as presented in the packet.
Motion a second to approve the rules and the information for the banner art contest for the downtown light poles. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. On to number 7 then. Consider and take action on Resolution 26-18, a resolution to recognize the creation of Fund Number 225, Columbus Municipal Court, and to approve commitment and assignment of fund balances for a specific fund held by the City of Columbus. This is something that's necessary with GASB rules. This was brought to the last committee of the whole and explained to why we have to go through this process to create the fund for the new court. Kim, I believe, is here if anyone has any further questions. Otherwise, the resolution is in your packet. If there are no questions for Kim, I'll entertain any motion from the council to approve that resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 26-18.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 26-18 to recognize the creation of Fund Number 255 for the Columbus Municipal Court. Any further discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number 8, consider and take action on Resolution 27-18, a resolution to abandon certain sanitary sewer utilities within the City of Columbus. Again, this was presented to the council at the last committee of the whole about some sewer lines that ran underneath the plant of American Packaging Corporation that was functional up until the James Street project. They're no longer needed as sewer mains for the city, so this resolution outlines that process. Any questions? Jason is here. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any motions from the council.
Motion to approve Resolution 27-18.
Second?
A motion, a second to approve Resolution 27-18, resolution to abandon certain sanitary sewer utilities within the city of Columbus. Any further discussion on that motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number 9, consider and take action on an agreement with the Summit Court Condo Association on snow plowing activities. This is something that's done annually for snow plowing in an area that's not conducive for the city crews. From my understanding, the contract language is the same as in years prior except for the date. There seemed to be no questions at the last meeting. If there's any questions, if none, I'll entertain any motions from the council.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with the Summit Court Condo Association on snow plowing activities.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Any discussion on that motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 10, consider and take action on a job description for a media coordinator. There were a few suggestions at the last committee of the whole meeting, which I believe, for me anyway, have been addressed. If there are any questions or concerns, Patrick, I'm sure, can answer them for you. I believe my concerns were under tools and equipment used, which seems to be updated. Andy?
Yeah, my concern is about the job title, and I think media coordinator is a lot stronger and might draw more candidates than media specialist. So I'm happy with that.
Unless there's any questions or concerns from the council, I will entertain a motion to approve the job description for the media coordinator position.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the job description for a media coordinator. Any discussion on that motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 11, consider and take action on an employment separation agreement with Davis Clark. Any questions from council on this? If there are no questions from council, I would entertain a motion to approve the employment separation agreement with Davis Clark.
Motion to approve the employment separation agreement with Davis Clark. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve an employment separation agreement with Davis Clark. Any discussion on that? If none, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Reed. Tylen.
Aye.
Traxler.
No.
Clark. Hendrickson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. If there are any questions on that, the city administrator does have a statement available if there's questions. Number 12, consider and take action on an agreement with Russell Consulting for work associated with the 360 employment review for the city administrator. This is a consultant from the area who is going to help the city council construct a 360 leadership assessment for the city of Columbus city administrator. Any questions on this one? If there are no questions, I'll take a motion to accept the, one last question. Paul, did you have any concerns about the contract language?
I did not.
Okay, good, thank you. If there are no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion to approve that agreement.
I'll make the motion to accept the agreement with Russell Consulting for work associated with the 360 employment review for the city administrator.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Any discussion on that motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 13, consider and take action on applications for operators licenses for the term of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2020. We had one additional name tonight, 2 names total, Michael Hutchins and Emma K. Peters. Any additional, Pat?
None.
Okay, those 2. Any questions? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those 2 operators licenses.
So moved.
Motion and a second to approve the new operators licenses for Michael Hutchins and Emma K. Peters for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2020. Any questions on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Licenses are approved. Number 14, consider and take action on claims in the amount of $3,183,593.55. That number may seem high, but if you look at the packet, there are several components. The final pay request for the Hall Road project was $459,000. There's also a lot of, I believe, refunds for escrow holders for property tax, and then also large amounts of money that are paid to the city and then paid out to other taxing authorities like the Columbia County, etc. If there's any questions on the claims? If none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the claims in the amount read.
I'll make a motion to accept the claims in the amount read.
A motion and a second to approve the claims in the amount read. Any discussion on that? If none, Pat, could you please take a roll call for us?
Tylen?
Aye.
Traxler?
Aye.
Clark? Hendrickson?
Aye.
Reed? Unanimous.
Thank you. On to report of city officers. Patrick, why don't you go ahead and jump in?
Thank you, Mayor. Last night I attended the Columbus School Board meeting because this week is Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week, and the school board honored our crossing guards. They are city employees, and Lieutenant Weiner, Acting Chief Weiner, was there with me, and so it was a good recognition of those folks who are, as I think Board President Cindy Dam described, like the postman, rain nor sleet or that kind of thing. They're out there manning their posts every day, making sure that our students are safe. If you've been around town during this week, you may have seen some activity in the middle of the streets. Working in sewer manholes is the cured in place pipe maintenance work that's getting going. Should last a couple of weeks. We've made sure that adjacent property owners have notice of what is happening, but just for the general public, that's what's happening to stretch out the useful life of our sewer mains. Christmas tree collection continues through the month, and as a reminder, if you have a wreath and you want to drop off at DPW, that can be done during normal business hours. And last week was the first community conversation related to our Roadmap 2050 project at the Senior Center. There are a number of those being planned. So just asking the public to pay attention if you're interested. There'll be lots of activity related to this project. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Patrick. I did have the Wisconsin Adult Crossing Guard Recognition Week as well, and I'm glad you were able to attend. I was invited, but I couldn't attend the meeting, but I wanted to thank the crossing guards and then thank the school board for recognizing that week and the importance of the job that they do every school day. So I also wanted to be a little more proactive here and mentioned, and I have in the last couple of reports, looking for vacancies or people that wanted to fill vacancies on various city boards, committees, or commissions that shortly after the April 2nd spring election, I will need to appoint or reappoint members to many of the boards, committees, and commissions that we have here in the city of Columbus. And I would urge anyone who has any interest to reach out, ask questions to me, city staff, council members. There is a link on the city website, and that form is available to sign up or apply for those positions at the bottom of the mayor's page, or you can also feel free to give me a call Patrick, stop in City Hall if you have questions. But I think this is a great opportunity for residents to directly influence the city services and policies in a productive and proactive manner in the city of Columbus. So please consider looking into one of those appointments. And final reminder that the City Council invites the public to a listening session on Tuesday, January 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Columbus Public Library Annex at 251 West James Street. In addition to that, the last community engagement team meeting that we had, they did ask if we would be willing to host a short questionnaire. I believe it's only 4 questions, to share that with people who attend. It's very informal, and very short. It's only going to take a few seconds, but I spoke on behalf of the council and said we'd be happy to participate in that. That's part of the efforts for the Roadmap 2050 future planning project that's underway currently. So that's all I had. Did anyone else have anything to add up here? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Stand adjourned for a few minutes and return with the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
I'll call the meeting to order. It is 6:57 p.m. Pat, if you could please take the roll.
Clark. Hendrickson.
Here.
Reed. Highland.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
All present.
All right, this meeting was noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Number 3, I would need to approve the agenda. I don't have any changes. We might have to juggle something. We might have to juggle a couple around just to make sure that the right people are here for that agenda item. But as a whole, the agenda, I don't have any changes. So entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Next up, citizen comments on agenda items. I don't think anybody else has signed up. Nope. All right, is anybody here that didn't have a chance to sign up that would like to speak? Okay. Next up, number 5, department reports. We have a report from the fire department. We have the treasurer's report, the police department, and the senior center. Any questions or comments on the department reports? All right, thank you. Looks like I'm going to go ahead and the next item, number 6, we're still waiting on someone to come in for that. So we're going to switch 6 and 7 for now and see if we get through that. So we'll do number 7, review and discuss in addition to a task order for water quality and phosphorus abatement. I think Patrick was going to introduce this to us.
Yeah, so there is a current task order active with Rupert Milky to assist us with work we need to do with the water quality and phosphorus trading. What this task order would just add a little bit to that, needing some additional resources to get the program functional with the 2 entities that we are working with to do the water quality trading per our discharge permit, that being the Wisconsin Academy and farmer Kurt Stibb. Both of those entities came to a meeting we had, I think back in September, when we invited property owners along the Crawfish River corridor. That there are property owners that conduct farming practices, and we felt that if we could get some of the property owners to enter into the program, we can successfully work on this trading for phosphorus and through the conservation efforts that Rupert's helping us with. So there are some additional costs to that project, and that's what this task order is requesting.
So the original task order was for $10,000?
Yes.
So you're seeking up to an additional $2,500?
That's correct.
So we're up to $12,500.
That's right.
Okay.
In the end, it helps us comply to the regulations of the DNR and our discharge permit for the wastewater treatment plant.
Right. Okay. All right. Any questions for Patrick or Jason? He's here too.
Yep. John Namer from the
And John?
wastewater plant
And
is
John?
here also. Yep.
All right. Okay. There's nothing. We move forward to the regular meeting. You good? Okay. All right. All right. So, still don't see anybody here. So we'll go to, we'll move on to number 8, review and discuss task order related to industrial discharges. into the wastewater treatment facility. Excuse me. Gonna jump ahead here. All right. I don't know if did you have something?
I guess I
you wanted to
can start it off. I'm sure there are a couple people behind me who can be a lot more technical on this, but this is the follow-up to a conversation we had in December related to efforts to monitor and regulate the high-strength discharges that come to the wastewater plant. Dave Arnott was here in early December to talk about the importance of moving to that as a municipality and as a sewer system. So in the task order, it outlines the work that they are proposing to set up the program and establish it from start to finish. Again, if there are technical questions, I might have to defer to Jason or John, but this is a follow-up to that report from Dave.
Sure. All right, and it looks like the amount of the project would be $24,529. And this would be out of the sewer fund?
Right.
Okay.
Right. This would be covered under our 2019 budget in the sewer.
Right, and this at the end of the day, this is going to be research essentially to bring it back to the council with a recommendation on any ordinances or, regulations that they see fit.
Right. Right. If things are going to be necessary for further regulation, there would need to be action by the council, ordinance changes, and I think even public education, I think, is an important element here, not only to the customers, but just to the public itself.
Makes sense. Jason, you have something more to add there?
Yeah, appreciate that, Andy. Just to kind of recap here, this is an implementation task order, so it's not just a study piece. This does include really basically three parts. One is to evaluate the current toxic substances and concentrations that we would be identifying as part of the program. The second part would be actually creating the permit and the steps or the process, if you will. So they'd be preparing the form and determining how that would be administered. And then the last step would be the ordinance modifications. So, we would obviously work through this systematically, bringing it back to the council for approval as we move through it. But this would be comprehensive. So, at the completion of the task order, theoretically, your ordinance would be changed, your permits would be created, and your program would be in place. We did list in here specifically, there are a few industries right now, I think we list 4 or 5 of them in here, that would be issued a permit initially with the new program in place. So again, we would be working with those specific industries to create the requirements for their unique permits as well. So again, it's more than just kind of developing the process, it's implementing it and then putting these permits in place for these current industries that you have. The other thing that I do want to add is, and I apologize, I think I printed out what was in the packet, but then I got confused, so I apologize. There is a task order, you had mentioned it was for $24,000. There is a version floating around, and I don't know if that was in the packet or if I just had it mixed up in mine. There is one for about $27,000. So if you haven't seen that, good. But the good news is we had went through and made some modifications to the scope after reviewing it with staff, and we were able to cut down some of the costs of what we had anticipated the program would cost, just through some efficiencies and utilizing some of the city staff and stuff. So I just want to let you know that the amount that you had mentioned, Andy, was the correct amount. But if you do see one that's a little more, the one that's higher is outdated, it's old. So just disregard that one. So.
Okay. And then is is this going to be just for the city of Columbus or the entire collection system? Like, Fall River?
This would be, from my understanding, for the city of Columbus, actually, because it would be your ordinance and your process. I know that as a customer, say Fall River or Alba, if they would have connections, they are obviously regulated through their local ordinances because, you know, their location is within those communities. Essentially, Fall River, for example, they are just providing a point source discharge, so they're regulating, you know, whether it's I&I or, you know, industrial contaminants or whatever, they're responsible for that regulation on their end. But if this obviously becomes a problem or a source of concern, you know, you're in a governmental agreement, gives you authority to address that, so.
Okay. Thank you. Mayoral?
One question, Jason. Section 2, scope of services, number 1. I'm just confused by that language a little bit, and I don't know if you're just referring to current customers by customer class, because that seems to in conflict with the rest of this document for non-industrial sewer user or non-industrial sewer users.
Yeah, I think that's a typo.
Okay.
I will make that correction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayoral. Any other questions for Jason?
That was a test. I put that in there to see if you'd catch that.
Okay. All right. If not, then we can, you guys want to move this forward? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I believe we are good to go ahead and go back to number 6 now. Number 6 is presentation on Columbus Community Hospital tax exempt bond financing for 2019 facility project. There's a memo here in the packet that states that they are going to be doing a project next year and are looking for some use of the bonding authority for Columbus. So, Patrick, you were going to kick this off?
Yeah, I can summarize, and then we've got some folks here if you've got questions. But what is before you is a request by the Columbus Community Hospital to partner with the city in use of the bank-supported tax-exempt bonding authority. This has happened in the past, back in 2014, I believe, during their last major expansion, and it allows them to seek out bonds at a lower interest rate. It helps support their project. In review of it from the city's standpoint, we've talked with our financial advisors, and certainly Kim has given this a review, and unless the city has some sort of major event where we need to bond a substantial amount of money, which we don't expect to, this would have a pretty minimal impact on the city situation. But there are some technical questions or things that you might have, so there are people here to answer those. But that is the gist of the issue.
Okay. John Russell at the podium. Did you have anything more to add?
No, not unless there are questions.
All right. I guess one quick question I had, probably for Kim, maybe is, we were recently started talking about maybe some potential capital projects this year. Would this have any impact on something like that?
This would only last for 1 year in impact. So at the end of the calendar year, we would return to our normal state.
Okay. Any questions for Patrick or John Russell or the attorney for Quarles? Regan.
So if I understand the materials correctly, currently the difference between what we'd be able to bond without transferring this to the hospital and what we would have to do if we did transfer, if we went above the 10 million, is a small amount. The difference in the rate we would be getting is small. Does that fluctuate highly? Is it fluctuate often?
I don't know specifically, but the sense I got from Greg is his statement is it's nominal right now,
Right.
And I would think that is tied to the interest rate environment at this time, but that's the best that I can tell you.
The bank qualified debt usually stays at about a half point.
Okay.
So what you're offering us, if you choose to do this, is we take advantage of that half point if you're not going to use it. So it stays around that amount. It does fluctuate slightly, but that's about the amount.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this item? Okay, well, we'll move this forward to the, Mayor Tom?
That's what I was going to ask, is about the process. Is this coming back in 2 weeks, or is this going to be a process that takes a bit longer?
That one we might want to defer to Emily, who's the attorney.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come on?
Yep, come on up.
Hi, I'm Emily Fons from Quarles and Brady. So the process that would take place here is we would do an initial resolution that the city would pass. The city would give due notice of passing this resolution, and there's some letters that would be sent. And Quarles would prepare that for you, and we'd prepare the resolution, which is what we did in 2013. For the city. And after that initial resolution is passed, once we get a little bit further down in the process, we'll do a final resolution. And that final resolution, the amount may change, where the city or the hospital may find we don't need 10 million or we need the full 10 million. In 2013 when we did this, I think that it ended up being 8 million. So there will be a couple more steps in this process, but it shouldn't really be that painful.
So as far as what we need to do tonight,
I think we're just looking for support, and then when there's the next steps, we'll be bringing them forward.
Right.
Does anybody have any more? Mike?
Well, the reason that I asked that question is because there's the initial resolution and the final resolution, but it still gives the council some flexibility when we're talking about capital projects. I don't think we're planning on borrowing any money, but we can still have that conversation at the ad hoc level or whatever. And if there is some, consensus that we need to borrow some money, we can address that before the process is done. This won't be over and done within 2 weeks. So
right.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Tome. Are we good to everyone have support this? Yeah. Okay. I think we're in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with your project. Okay. Next up, number 9, further discussion of signage and safety changes around the Columbus elementary and middle schools. We did get a lot of information in our packet, including some maps and pictures. I don't know if those are going to be presented on the overhead or not for viewing. Do you know if Yep, there we go. Perfect. I know, Patrick, you had started this off last time. Do you have anything to add right now?
I can maybe just recap what we had talked about at the last committee of the whole. And it's some of these issues, all of these issues are indicated up on the map, but this is the result of some conversations we've had with school officials about addressing school signage, school safety, and the like. We talked about the elementary school, where we've got no parking signs mornings and afternoons. The true needs for those have changed, where the mornings are still needed, the afternoons are not, and we want to discuss signage to reflect that. Also, at the middle school, we have the same situation with the no right turn, and also the no parking during school hours, morning, afternoon issue, similar to the elementary school. We talked about ADA parking tied up to the middle school, and potentially having that moved to more focused in the parking lot. And finally, the request to consider parking spaces on West School Street to be adjacent or near the district office as district parking. And then finally, there was a question about the gate that lies at the end of Fountain Street. There's some photos in your packet that a question was raised about the need to have that locked or unlocked, and questions about a requirement as a thoroughfare to the schools. Through the city engineer and information, I believe, from the police department, that there, at least from the city standpoint, the gate there could be locked, which could alleviate that being a informal drop-off in the morning, and that has apparently caused some congestion and traffic issues down there. So those were the main items. The school personnel are here. They may have some additional things if I've missed anything. Sergeant Ward from the police department is also here.
Okay. All right. So I don't know how you guys want to handle this. Just go through each school individually and address each issue that way. Before we do that, does anybody from the school want to add anything at this time? Okay. And Sergeant Moore, do you have anything to add at this time? Okay. All right. Any questions before we dig into this? All right. Oh, Regan.
I don't have a question. I was just gonna.
You're just ready to bounce?
go.
Okay. All right. So the elementary school. So we have the afternoon parking restriction. And thoughts? I'm not up at the school during the time, so this is kind of, it's a little foreign to me. So, Mayor Tone?
I'm very familiar with the signs.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a recommendation as to like how many signs need to be removed or how many signs need to change or what the verbiage is on the signs. I'm just curious about that, I guess. Not that it's important, but I just want to get the temperature on that. Troy?
Yeah, so the main thing that needs to change is just, I don't think we need to take the signs down. But it says no parking for the afternoon. I believe it's from 2:45 to 3:30. It would just be to remove that slot, and that's on both schools.
Okay.
And that's because of the way we're doing pickup now. The buses aren't lining up there anymore, so it gives the parents an opportunity to pick up some of those kids out on curbside versus everybody coming down through the pickup line by the parking lot.
So as far as the AM restriction you want to keep there, is that because
The buses are still dropping
there?
off there,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Regan?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it makes sense to have the afternoon reference taken off, and I don't know if we can switch to, the sign is actually on another picture later on in the packet, but anyway, if you wanted to go bullet by bullet, I think that makes sense just to keep track, but I think that one makes total sense given what we're currently doing and how people are actually using the space. So.
Go ahead.
The barricade that's referred to in front of the elementary school, has that been removed already?
It has.
Okay.
I don't know when, but it's gone.
Okay, so we just need to, do we need to update the signage for that space or not?
I don't believe so. We do have plenty of handicap parking at the elementary end of that parking lot, so.
Okay, so the last sentence in there asks if the sign could be switched out for a sleeker sign on a pole. Is that needed at this point or not?
No.
Okay. And then the last question is, Dennis pointed out that this sign is identified in our ordinances, and I don't have the exact ordinance in front of me, and maybe it's in here and I didn't read it, but I believe there are specific streets named in some of the ordinances pertaining to school parking, and so I would ask that maybe Paul looks at that and gives us a suggestion so we can do it all at once.
A broader look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
The question I have, and I don't know that we know the answer, perhaps Jason does, on the no parking with if we X out the afternoon, does that constitute a legal sign? We may have to switch it out altogether, so we'll investigate that as well.
All right. So are we good with removing that time from 2:45 to 3:15 from the sign? Whether it's new signs or ordinance changes, we'll find out, but, all right. Thank you. And then, next at the elementary school, they want to address the handicap spot in front of the elementary school. Should be switched out. Currently, the handicap parking sign is on some sort of barricade. Oh, is that what we're just,
yeah.
okay, sorry. So is it on its own?
It was on like a 18 by 18 cement block that the post was sticking up out of.
Okay. All right. All right, so then I have middle school. First bullet point is no right turn sign from Dickinson to Richmond can be taken down. Anybody have Mayor Tone?
Unless there's any ordinance change required for that, I would ask that we just take it down if that's possible.
Okay. Everyone good with having that removed and confirming that there's no ordinance affiliated with that? Okay, we already discussed the removing the time from the afternoon for no parking from the sign. For the elementary school, he said it also applied to the middle school. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. And they're asking if the area on the corner of Richmond and Dickinson can be designated more clearly, including painting yellow curb around it. It's used for ADA parking. And I would like to shift the ADA parking designated spots in the parking lot and close off the current spots to no parking to allow room for pedestrian, bike, and bus movement in that area. And I don't have any idea. Regan?
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify the statement in the packet. You want to get rid of that parking stall the way it is currently and just have all of the ADA parking in the parking lot?
Correct.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. And so I think when we talked about this last time, there was maybe some need to get rid of paint lines on the road just to make it clear that that's not a parking spot any longer. But this is a holdover from a couple years ago, so it really should be done.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I can't see the map very well, I'm sorry, but the area we're talking about that currently has the ADA spots would abut the middle school on Richmond Street?
Yes.
Is that extra lane, I guess?
Yeah.
To the right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're immediately when you turn onto Richmond.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have something, Trina? Good? Okay. And then the painting on the curb, are we any questions or concerned with that? I guess we would need to figure out DPW or...
Yeah, that wouldn't be too difficult to do. It's not a sign, so... And if those parking spots are going to be eliminated, we remove the stripes, and then they don't want parking right there of
Right.
any kind, so... Yeah.
And is this all, would this all be funded by the city? Any changes to paint, signs, et cetera?
Well, the regulations are city responsibility. Yep.
In this case, they're just removing paint.
Sure. Well, they can borrow my power washer. All right. And so are we good with that section there? Oh, Mayor, sorry.
Are we removing paint or adding paint? Because
I think you'll want to remove two because there are some spots that are painted
okay, but
for individual stalls.
okay, that's what I'm trying to clarify. So we're removing striping, but then the curb is still going to remain, or should be yellow to her.
I would think you'd want to put it yellow just to identify that it's
Are there any signs in that area to prohibit parking?
As of right now, there's none.
Okay. I feel like having one sign there might serve better than just painting the curb yellow, because we might not be able to do the yellow painting this winter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about adding paint to the crosswalk.
No.
Oh, yeah. No, right now there's yellow paint on each side of it,
Oh, okay.
but people still pull up there and try to park, and it's mostly like in the afternoon for pickup time. Parents will pull up and park there.
Okay. Maybe we consider adding a sign to prohibit parking there, just to get people used to that new,
Yeah,
to the new rules. It's one sign.
I'm wondering, yeah, if there could be some sort of temporary signage for a while to
Can use that
educate.
missing barricade and
Right.
swap out the signs and put it on that. All right. That's a good idea. Anything else on that section? Okay. Then also looks like they're asking for designating 3 parking spaces along West School near the district office for visitor parking. So that on school, is that here?
No, go to the last page. So it's here.
Oh, okay. There's currently some no parking, okay. All right, go ahead, Regan.
So currently, they're further down towards Main Street. There's parking allowed on the street, but the district office entrance literally has no parking available within a half a block of the school. So I do support adding parking spaces for the district office. It's a separate entrance. It's not intended for parents to use for school business with their children. It's intended for district office visitors who have meetings at the district office. And so I think what ends up happening is there's no parking there. District office visitors go to the parking lot between the schools, and then they end up coming in through the front entrance of the middle school and having to go through the security check, which I understand is important, but that's really more for school business as far as the middle school business, and not intended for what the district office entrance is for. So I think it's a good idea to add parking at least somewhere on that street. The request here is to have it on the same side of the street as the district office entrance. And frankly, I do see people parking there all the time, regardless of the no parking sign. So I think it makes sense to open up some spaces there.
Mike?
On that same issue, looking at the pictures here, there was a parking space that was created in the last year or two for the district office. Is that correct? When we went through some of this stuff before, and I thought there was a parking spot that was created there.
Nope, we don't have anything there.
Okay.
So currently, as Regan was saying, they either go up to the boulevard and they park along there, or they're parking down by Olivet, or closer down by Main Street, or in the parking lot. And we really are redirecting anybody who is doing district office business to our district office entrance, and really encouraging them not to check in through the middle school office, because that is for the middle school business. And now with what our new system for our visitors that we just received through the Department of Justice Safety and Security Grant, everybody has to go through the Raptor system and when they log in. So we're really trying to get our district office to visitors to log in with the district through the district office. We are perfectly okay with, because typically district office visitors aren't there for a long period of time. So we're okay with putting, some time limits on that. And we would not allow school staff to park in those spaces at all. It would be just district office visitors, and we're okay with putting a time period on it.
Is there parking prohibited on both sides of that street?
There is,
currently?
yeah.
But
Yep.
there are parents that stop there for pickup and drop off though, correct?
Yes, it's been allowed. They've never been ticketed, so
Okay.
I mean, even if we'd have to say, district office visitors from 8 o'clock, because we typically don't have anybody that comes to visit before school starts, 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock, something like that.
Sure.
We'd be very appreciative.
Okay, thank you.
So what would we want parking to be during those off hours? No parking, or anybody can park there? That's
Right now, parking prohibited, period.
Correct.
So would this be a no parking?
I would say it should be no parking like it is now, other than district office parking during district office hours. It's a really congested area in general. That street, if you have parking on it, farther down the street, there is parking allowed, and it's just like a lot of other places in the center of the city. You have to kind of weave in and out when there's oncoming traffic. But having that get closer to school and the playground, I think, would be a safety issue if it was all the time. And cars were allowed to just line up and park there on a long-term basis.
And I would actually, I think maybe defer to Sergeant Ward on which side of the street would be safer to have that parking too when it comes to safing. Is it better to have it on the actual right next to the school or the opposite side of the school, or, where exactly along the street? I think it's good that we're allowing some parking that's a little bit closer, but in regards to safety, where would be the best place to have it too? So.
That was one of my concerns when this first came forward, because I know that you're dealing with school safety issues, and I don't want to encourage people, with the rules we're making,
Right.
too close, I guess.
Right.
And so, I'd be open to whatever Sergeant Ward would recommend as well. I'm in favor of doing that, and maybe just, like you said, having a sign that says school district office parking only during school hours or something to that effect. But it is a fairly narrow street, gets congested pretty quickly, so.
All right. Like Sergeant Ward's on his way up.
So I guess from a law enforcement standpoint, from knowing this street, my recommendation would probably be on the opposite side of the road from the district office. It's going to help maintain visibility by the school. If, law enforcement needs to respond, it's going to get us right to the school. And I would also probably put a Monday through Friday restriction on it with time limits. So parking Monday through Friday for 15 minutes or 8 to 3 for 20 minutes, or, whatever a net feels appropriate for visitors to there. And then the other thing is keeping it up from the intersection just for visibility purposes, making sure that we have that, that buffer from the intersection at Dickinson back, just to make sure people aren't parking too close. As far as a lot of the parking issues, I know there's been a lot of leeway given, and it can certainly be an enforcement issue if that's what the council is looking for, to try to get people to understand that we're making changes and those changes are going to be enforced. But it's going to be I think a learning curve as well for the student or the parents that have been doing it for quite some time, to make them realize that these are the new rules that need to be followed and followed for a purpose. I guess looking at this, my other question, and maybe Annette or Troy can answer this, is in front of the elementary school. I know you'd already covered it a little bit, but as I was going through the packet here, I guess it came up to me. When you have it posted as no parking except for certain hours, and then you also have the curb in front of there painted yellow, but the school district is allowing parents to park, get out, and go get their students, do we need to change that no parking zone or that, painting on the curb to reflect that? Because otherwise, if we're going to start enforcing, we need to enforce everything, and that's going to be a violation of a no parking. So just something else that needs to be considered if we do look at that.
Trina?
Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
oh, no, I'm just feeling comfortable with the idea of setting some parking aside. I'm picturing the sign saying, district office visitor parking only, 7:30 to 3:45, Monday to Friday, 30-minute limit.
I think that would be perfectly fine. It sets the limits that we need and it keeps you from parking there over the weekend or for hours at a time. So I would have no problem with verbiage similar to that. I think we'd have to probably talk to Patrick to see if that's going to be another ordinance issue that we need to look at as well. Make sure that everything's covered on all ends if it does become an enforcement issue.
Go ahead.
That was my question. If we have to go in and amend ordinances, Paul, and there's specific street names there, to me, there's a difference between parking and a pickup and drop-off area, because the intent may be to open up that area for pickup and drop-off, but if parking's not prohibited, someone can park there for, up to 48 hours in town, I think.
You have a choice as to how you want to handle this, because you have a section in your ordinances that basically says wherever there's appropriate signage, the signage dictates the rule of the road versus be it parking or be it turning or stopping or anything along that line. You also have several sections in the ordinances that specify streets and times and locations. And my question for you was going to be, which way would you prefer? It seems to me that it's an awful lot easier for situations like this to eliminate all your specific references to streets and times and rely solely on signs. That's going to increase your sign budget considerably. But at the same time, when people are driving down the road, nobody's looking at the ordinance book. They're all looking at the signs that are on the road. And if you do make ordinances, you also have to sign anyway. So it would seem to me that it would be more efficient, and especially for situations like this where the school is asking for changes or any other business might be asking for changes in the future, to not have to change the ordinance every time you want to change the parking. So I think I'd suggest going through the code and beefing up the section that basically says the council will determine, will set the laws by appropriate signage, and get rid of all of the references to specific streets and times.
What I've been looking through this, I'm envisioning like a 3-step process. There's things we can do immediately tomorrow, like taking down a sign. There's painting that probably isn't going to happen, but I think reviewing the ordinances and making that decision is appropriate, whether you want to pull the specifics out or just change the language to reflect on what we're trying to do right now. Part of me doesn't like the idea that you can just jam a sign in the ground anywhere and then hand out tickets and it's not tied to an ordinance. So,
well, it will be tied to an ordinance, because the ordinance will say wherever there's a signage, follow it.
Yeah.
That's what it says now, and the council decides where the signs go.
And that's kind of my concern of bringing some of this stuff forward as well, is that if the sign conflicts with what the school district is asking for drivers to do right now, it becomes very confusing, because an officer could write out a ticket because the ordinance states that it's not permitted, even though we're trying to get people to park there. So I think that we should look at the existing ordinance and make a decision. It's 2 weeks. We're probably not, it's not going to slow down the process too much. So,
next, as I'm looking at this, 9876 is the general signage ordinance. 9877 and 78 get into your specific streets, both business and residential districts. And you could probably do away with a lot of, well, based on your conversation tonight, you can probably do away with a lot of 9878. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. And you certainly don't want to create the situation where you have a conflict between the sign in the ground and the words in the book.
Correct.
That's what you're trying to prevent.
Yep, I agree. I think just getting it in front of us to review is the best thing to do, and instead of kind of picking a path in amidst all this huge laundry list of other changes we're making. So
I can put something together to get you started at least.
That would be great, I think.
Okay. Sergeant Ward, do you have anything else to add right now?
No.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I agree with the approach. Mayor Tome, I think some more review of this would be necessary to kick this off. So we'll just continue down here. I got a couple more. Fountain Street. So this is the fencing that is currently unlocked, and they want to lock it. I don't really know honestly, I don't know if that's something we have to even address. It's not our fence, right? Okay. Go ahead.
So I guess the concern at that point is we've had complaints from the residents that have garages on Fountain Street there, that they're concerned that as they're leaving for work or pulling out of their driveway, they've got kids walking through there. Our prerogative is we would like to have it locked all the time so that there's not immediate access to the playground. But yeah, that was the concern from the residents. We did have some people preferring to use that for their walk in and drop their kid off, but our preference is to lock it. I know that the question came up through Beth Helpap, the elementary school principal, and I don't know if it was a conversation with Chief Meister at the time about that being deemed a safe walking path.
All right, Regan?
So I guess that gets to my question, which originally was going to be, do we know what the purpose of that gate is to serve, especially if it's left open? But is there anything in the city, from the city's perspective, that deems that a necessary walkway?
After our conversations, we've looked and haven't found anything.
Okay. And it's not our gate, right? It's the school's gate.
It's ours.
Right. So I have no problem. I think it should be locked as well, or not be there.
One last question on that Fountain Street. Do you know if there's sidewalks in that last block that run into that?
There's not.
I think that's another reason not to have pedestrian traffic in that area. I think kids should be on sidewalks.
Okay. Okay, so that's everything on the list here, and sounds like we need to bring this back to the cow for a little further review. Mayor Dahl?
I think some of these things can be done immediately if they haven't already been done that don't really require our action, or if it's just changing the signs, but the ordinance review, I think we need to bring back.
Okay. All right, do you want to identify which items we're going to give the okay to? Or do we need like a formal approval? I mean,
I
if they
think
take down, if they change the time on the sign, I don't think, I mean, if that's tied to the ordinance, then.
I would advise that we give Patrick discretion to talk to Attorney Johnson and to Annette to find out what can be accomplished between now and the next meeting legally. Whatever the current ordinance will provide for, and then we address the ordinance in 2 weeks.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns with that? Okay. Anything else to add? Anybody? All right. All right, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. Excuse me. Next up, I have item 10, presentation from HLPC on a recent donation to address maintenance issues at the Fireman's Park Pavilion. And looks like we have Carolyn Fredericks here. Yep. Hello.
Tom. I'm here this evening basically to get your blessing on HLPC having the hardwood floors on the second floor of the pavilion refinished. We acquired 3 bids for the project and have chosen Haldeman Homey Incorporated to do the work. We're looking at the week of February 11th to have this work done. And it would basically mean just closing the pavilion for the walkers and Zumba for 1 week. And then that project can be done. Good news is additional projects are coming for 2019 from an incredible opportunity that CHLPC has been given from the Merle Gunther Foundation. So these projects include for this year adding additional electrical outlets in the ballroom on both sides upstairs, additional exterior outlets for events, additional utility sink in the coat room, many new windows, updated kitchen design with 2 electric stoves. We'll get rid of the gas stove in there, and 2 refrigerators. New design for the first floor entryway and exterior painting of the building. So we're pretty excited about our opportunities for the pavilion for 19. I did also want to mention CHLPC has always respected that pavilion is a city-owned building, and we'd like to make sure to have the blessing of City Council as we work to achieve all these accomplishments to the building. So I'll be coming to a lot of council meetings. You'll be stuck with me. And we like to do that just so you're all informed of the process, the schedule, you know, and just how the whole projects are moving along. Any updates, any questions you have along the way. So you're welcome to contact me with any questions, concerns, any one of the HLPC members. CHLPC is very excited and honored at what a wonderful opportunity for the city of Columbus, for the community, and from the Merle Gunther Foundation. So I've truly been blessed with this donation given to HLPC. So does anyone have any questions at this time that I can answer? Like I said, I'll be at continued council meetings just to, I think it's important to let you all know where the process is on these projects and how it's moving along in the schedule. And
You had mentioned the exterior entryway in that long list of things. Is that upper or lower?
Most renters of the building for an event will use the north end of the building. The stairway is kind of their entryway. You know, the rest of us, or a lot of us, really just use the downstairs, you know, where the double doors are. Those need some work anyway, and we would like to kind of really vamp up that as an entryway into the building. So it's from people that are there for events or, you know, celebrations, have an easier idea of actually where to go into the building. So we'd like to beef that up a little bit. Some new lighting, new doors, kind of reconfigure it, dress it up a bit.
Okay. So you're just looking for the hardwood refinishing.
Yes, at this
project
time.
blessing.
Yes, please.
Any have concerns about this? No. All right.
Okay.
Blessed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right. Next up, I have number 11. Review and discuss ordinances related to the zoning administrator and the permit approval process. And Matt, go for it.
Sure. Last week on Tuesday, Patrick and I met with Dion, who is our new building inspector, and then Mark, was it, from GEC. And through those discussions, it kind of came out that they would like some sort of process from the city's end that my position would give some sort of zoning permit or zoning approval to any project before a building permit is issued. And after talking through the process with Patrick, we both kind of agreed that that would be a good idea. If you look in our zoning, or if you look at our code right now, under 11447, it currently states that the zoning administrator is the building inspector. So that was one of the issues that we saw that needed to be changed moving forward. I did find under 11449 that we actually already have on the books that we have to be issuing a certificate of zoning compliance for projects, which is a good thing because then we don't have to create it in the ordinance. But on the flip side, the zoning administrator, which was previously which is currently the building inspector, has not been issuing these sort of permits. Jake would review them, and he would review the zoning, and when he was there, we would coordinate on a lot of questions that if he didn't have a good understanding, he would come to me, and I would help fill the gap. And essentially what we're proposing is that the city rewrite its ordinance so that the zoning administrator is an appointed position, and then that you would appoint, currently you would appoint obviously the director of planning and development, which is me, and then as you go on, you can obviously administer, then appoint others. It's an easier process than actually naming a job title, mainly because my job title 2 predecessors ago was something different, and my last predecessor was something different. So, I mean, if it's going to be this position, it makes more sense just to have it by appointment than not. So, really, tonight was just the preliminary discussion, just to kind of get the feedback from the council. I also have this on the Plan Commission agenda for Thursday night to kind of do the same thing, just have that initial talk. To make this change, essentially what we'll need to do is we'll have to have a public hearing at our Plan Commission in February. We'll have to do a Class 2 notice, which means it'll basically run twice in the paper. And from there, we'll have a public hearing at the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission then will make a recommendation to the council, and the council would approve it on March 5th. Really, the only other 2 things we need to create a zoning permit process is, one, we need to determine if we need to have a fee. Other communities have fees for things such as this. In fact, I spoke with a friend of mine who is a planner at the city of Sun Prairie, and they charge $25, which is on the low end. Some of this we need to work through and obviously bring back to council. And the other thing is I need to develop a actually application form for this. So when we take it in, people fill out something and we have a record that somebody submitted an application to us. So those are really, that's where we're at. If there's any questions, please ask, or if I'm missing anything, please open to suggestions. So, and Paul, do you have anything to add? I guess you're the one who wrote the draft ordinance in there. I should throw.
The only thing that I want to stress to the council, Matt mentioned it, but the way that the ordinance is set up right now is that this will be, zoning administrator will be an appointed position, appointed by the council, and it is for a person, not a position. And that way, one of the qualifications of the person will be determinative, not just who sits in the chair at any particular moment. Because as Matt did point out, city clerk has been the zoning administrator, and various people in Matt's office have been the zoning administrator, all with different titles. So it's person-oriented, not position-oriented.
Mayor Tom?
2 questions. The first one, if the council chooses to move forward with the change, the Plan Commission will hold a public hearing and recommend approval. So this change has to come as a recommendation from the Plan Commission?
It's a zoning ordinance amendment, so it has to go through the Plan Commission first before final approval by the council.
Okay, that makes sense. And then number 2 you have on here, create an application form for a zoning permit. When do you need to apply for a zoning permit? If there's a request for a zoning change or a use change, or is this for everything that's ever going to happen?
So it would be there'd be for a number of things. Basically, this will be the city's method to check if you're a permitted use or not. So if you're reoccupying a retail space, it's just a simple check, yes, you're a permitted use. So, so we're essentially verifying them, and this will give us also, I guess I didn't mention this, this will give us the ability to get in touch with Randy Keene, get in touch with the police department, and do some of these searches, some of these housekeeping items ahead of time. Okay. To be a little more proactive. So I think that's going to be a positive step in the right direction. But also, for a single family home, it's basically I'm going to be getting the site plan and making sure the setbacks are there so that the building inspector is not checking the setbacks. I'm going to be checking it. Also, some of the other administrative permits will come in. Sign permits have their own forms. That's technically not under this, but under our discussions with GEC, I'll be doing sheds, fences, and signs too.
And checking for the floodplain.
Floodplain, yeah. Sorry.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Any more questions for Matt? All right, so we'll see this back here again in the near future. Thank you. let's see. Next up, discuss formalization of citywide beautification committee. I don't know who wants to kick this off, Patrick or Matt or?
Sure, I can kind of summarize. In your packet is a memo just talking about, some of the things that the Downtown Beautification Task Force has done, bringing forward some good ideas. We had the banner contest approved tonight. Just as, looking at the issue and just reviewing things, would like to just have a conversation about utilizing and expanding a little bit of this downtown beautification. Can we look at citywide beautification and formalizing the focus and the goals of a group? And I know in the conversations I've had with Matt, utilizing the May Ward Fund as a potential resource for folks, similar to maybe the HLPC, where they get donations and then it can hopefully build from there. So I'm throwing that out as a discussion item and see if there's interest in pursuing that. I know it was at some point last year, the council and committee of the whole, we talked about the task force. I think utilizing the energy from the members and taking it to this next step might be something that we want to look at.
Okay. And there was a beautification committee before. Is that now defunct? Is it still on
the beautification committee is one of my favorite ordinances in your code. It exists under 106-35, but it doesn't exist because it's governed by 7833, which was repealed. But yet 106-35 lays out the appointment of 3 people and gives it duties, but all of its duties pertain to street trees. So my first suggestion would be to repeal 106-35, and if you're interested in going forward with something formal, to start from zero and create a committee or a commission that is going to do what Patrick said or anything that you would like. But at the very least, we should clean up and make 106-35 go away.
Well, that would be a good place to start. I see there's in the memo there's, potential, creating or now using the beautification committee, now probably recreating a beautification committee, or potentially add this as a subcommittee to the Tourism Commission. I did have a couple questions here for maybe Patrick or Matt. Not sure who would take it, but there are some reservations on whether if it was funded by room tax dollars, what could or couldn't be used for the beautification efforts in the city. Which, we're talking, the projects that could come up with this seem pretty similar to the projects we've, as Tourism Commission, already done, like the buntings on the pavilion and flagpoles through the downtown. So I just didn't know if you had any like if anybody's actually done the research to find out if the way the state says we can use these funds is the appropriate with how we maybe could consider using them.
What I think is the case here and is, as in a lot of state mandates, they bring down some requirements and set things up, but they don't give you specifics. So they say tourism, you can use room tax dollars to put heads in beds. And I think you can find a spectrum of ways that communities view that. And I only put that in there because I wanted maybe some perspective of those who've been on tourism and, something just to put up there for discussion.
Yeah, and that's
because
we've talked about it at tourism. Mayor Tome and I are both on that commission, but it's always been kind of a, presented as a gray area, just like you are now.
Yeah.
And no one has really asked the question to the state. Do you want to ask the question to the state to bring focus on you? Probably not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Trina's got something.
Oh, no, had the same concern, that putting it under tourism would likely be too limiting for what the beautification committee would then be able to do. They likely wouldn't be able to, get garbage cans and benches and regular things that are useful and do beautify the city, but wouldn't be considered to bring someone into the city for the purpose of sitting on said bench. My other question was on the May Ward Fund. I can't recall, is that for general beautification or is that for plantings? I really thought it was for plantings, and I'm not positive.
I think the latest uses of that fund has been for plantings, but I don't think even in conversations with Ann, who had been here a long time, we could never find, the blueprints for what the May Ward Fund was exactly intended for.
Yeah. And at this point, I don't know where we are in the May Ward Fund balance. I know Tourism Commission donated money to it, which again makes my point where we could probably still do that under tourism. I think we should, it's not an ordinance, right? It's just a fund.
Mystery.
It's just a mystery. Okay. Mr. Clark?
To Trina's point, I think having some kind of parameters around this group would probably be a good idea. Limiting it to the aesthetics of certain areas, I think, would be ideal. I don't like the scope creep that's been going on. I don't think it's appropriate for this group to be presenting ordinance changes. We've used the tourism dollars before for, like Andy said, for these things to bring people into, when they're here, they, notice that things look better, and maybe that will encourage them as they're driving through. I think that's kind of our interpretation of what we want to spend those dollars on, and I'd support having it as a subcommittee for those reasons.
Here, Tom?
I guess since I'm the one who brought up the suggestion of considering doing something as a tourism subcommittee, I would mostly want to ask Paul. This is kind of a new entity. It's only a couple of years old. I don't know if we can accomplish what I necessarily feel like I would want this subcommittee to accomplish. Can you have the Tourism Commission assign a subcommittee?
I have not done the research on that yet. My gut reaction would be no. Just because the Tourism Commission is supposed to be fairly limited in scope, although there's absolutely no rules that define what that scope is. And creating from what the current interpretation of the beautification committee has been, it's been a lot broader than just tourism issues. It's been Michael used scope creep, and it's been expanding and it's going in a whole bunch of different directions. Trying to make it a subtopic or a subcategory of the Tourism Commission probably would be almost too limiting for what I think the current intent is trying to be. So I think that if you're looking at the beautification committee, you ought to create a committee, decide what the parameters are, and decide where the funding is going to come from or what money is available to it, and then just move forward as a completely independent organization. Not organization, committee or commission.
And that, I guess that goes along with what I was assuming without digging into things. I think that what I've been hearing about the Tourism Commission is whether or not their, expenses would comply with what the state wants us. And my intent was not to use this as a source of funding, but to eliminate dual efforts as far as marketing the city and having a subcommittee and then having them reach out, get donations, or even be utilizing the May Award Fund for donations, that it wouldn't necessarily be there to expressly survive on the funds that are provided by tourism, so they wouldn't have to, the conversation wouldn't have to comply with those financial requirements. I just see it as eliminating some redundancy or dual efforts. That was my intent of mentioning the Tourism Commission. I think the other thing is the autonomy. The Tourism Commission, if there's a subcommittee, I'm assuming that that committee would be reporting to the Tourism Commission and it would have nothing to do with the City Council. But a committee would make recommendations to the council. So I guess I don't have a firm answer on either one of them, but that kind of helps define the differences between the two different directions you could go in.
Well, as I'm listening, I think you could solve some of the underlying issues that we're getting at by, if it was a committee, your liaison from the council to that committee could simply be the same person or one of the people that is also on tourism, so that you're not duplicating efforts. That person would presumably know if something came up during a discussion at the beautification committee, well, we need to get tourism approval for that, or we should before we go to council, those kinds of discussions. So I think there's probably ways to address some of this. I think I support it being a standalone entity of some kind. I think it's interesting. I just wanted to bring it up for a point of discussion. In the memo, we're talking about, originally it was the Downtown Beautification Committee, formalizing it to make it more city-wide. I would want to make sure we're somehow addressing the original intent, which was really to start helping and focusing attention downtown. So I don't have a problem with expanding it to be Columbus-wide, but I would want to see some effort put into making sure in some way that we're recognizing the intent here was to help support the downtown, which is, in my opinion, struggling more than the rest of the city as far as an economic base.
Thanks, Regan. So I guess at this point, go ahead, Trina.
Oh, no, I'm in agreement with Regan. I really would like to see it stay independent, but with stronger parameters.
Okay. So the first question I think we need to figure out is, I mean, do we want to go down the road of a committee, or do we want to, or if Paul's saying no to a task force, but was your no answer because you were talking about the funding?
No, my no answer is I don't particularly care which direction you go. I just think you should go a direction. Having some the word parameters is appealing to me, because whenever you've got a city commission or a commission or a committee or anything that is making recommendations, they've got to have a scope.
Right.
Because otherwise, exactly as Mayor Tolman was saying, you're going to end up with overlap and you're going to end up with redundancies, and government doesn't need that. There's plenty already. So.
Right. Okay. Mayor Tolman?
Yeah, Paul just said it. I think that the term scope creep is what can happen if you don't have something formalized. That there's, when you read through the ordinances, every committee or board or commission that we have is kind of outlined to their powers and duties and what they're assigned to do. And I think there's going to have to be some conversation if we go down this road exactly what that is. I think there's differences of opinions up here already about specifically what this group wants to do, and I understand that there's a lot of passion for the downtown right now, and I do believe that there should be some focus on that. However, by simply creating a committee to make recommendations to the city council alludes to funding, and I think that when we first talked about this, a large part of the focus was relying on getting some buy-in from downtown businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, and looking for some donations, et cetera. So I think that needs to be a focus of the group as well, besides just having a subcommittee to make requests of the city council for that without having a consistent source of funding like the Tourism Commission, may or may not qualify for. So I think identifying the scope of what this committee would do is going to be first steps.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, I think, again, that sounds like a good starting point. This is obviously going to take further discussion and further meetings. So I would recommend that we work with staff to get this back here again in the near future, or no?
I just wanted to ask, when you found the reference to this in the ordinance, I mean, does this exist anywhere else in anybody else's ordinance?
You mean other municipalities?
On other municipalities, yeah.
I'm not aware, none of the municipalities that I represent, I'm not aware of something as specific as this. I mean, a lot of times, especially if you're looking at downtown, you're looking at Chamber of Commerce oriented, you're looking at a CDA type situation, and some communities have bid districts set up to kind of self-fund downtown improvements. But I have not seen anything that's like a downtown beautification committee, so to speak. There's a first for everything.
Well, I think also acknowledging what other communities use as models, similar communities the size of Columbus, maybe a little bit larger, that have struggled with the same problems, is how did they deal with those issues, and what did the body that took care of or addressed those issues look like? So we can at least acknowledge that before we reinvent the wheel and invent something no one else has. Maybe there's a reason that it hasn't been invented in other places, and I think we need to know that. So.
Okay. But at the very least, we need to at least get this ordinance repealed, or the 10635. Okay. Well, we can move that forward to the next regular meeting, and then we'll continue discussion on this in the near future, whatever that conversation looks like. Anything else to add, anyone? Nope. Okay. Next up, I have number 13, discuss deputy treasurer retirement and a plan for moving forward. Looks like Barb is retiring in May, and the city is going to be looking for some additional staff time and funding to potentially make that a full-time position. Patrick, did you have anything else to add?
That pretty much says it. Barb, we're certainly sad to see her go, but she does work full-time during the tax season, but we've recognized that the duties would be such that we could use her full-time throughout the year. So that's what this item is related to, with that opportunity for the vacancy to have that discussion.
Okay, so, and you presented a couple of set spreadsheet options in here. One showing the current, and my question on that, the current, is that just based on the hours of the employee, or is that, because you have current with spouse, with benefits, employee spouse,
Right.
and you have just current, so I didn't know.
So current shows what we have currently with Barb in place.
Okay.
And proposed would be what it would look like moving to a full-time.
Okay, but does Barb have an employee and spouse wage benefits?
Just,
Go ahead, Kim.
right now, the position is the number of hours where the position, regardless of who would hold it, qualifies for all of the city benefits. At this moment in time, Barb's not part of our health insurance plan. She's taken the buyout because they have insurances through her husband's retirement plan. What I kind of showed there was just if we had Barb on the plan as an employee spouse, what the difference would look like. The wage line would be the big difference as far as the number of hours. We'd be adding 280 hours to her, or to this position's, to this position. Right now, she's budgeted, or the position is budgeted for 1,800, and it would go to 2,080.
Okay. So right now, it looks like if whoever would, the extra 280 hours, 280, would result in about a $5,000 difference in
pay.
In pay. Although potentially, if you take the current salary and you add full-time and they take benefits, then we're almost $18,000 in difference.
Right.
And how would you recommend covering that?
We'd end up having to do a budget amendment for that. That's just too large of a difference to be able to, just absorb within the treasurer's budget.
Okay.
And the only other option would be dropping the position back to less, like 24 hours or less, which would be 3 days a week, which the workload's just, it's not conducive to be going backwards.
So you would recommend this to be a full-time position?
Definitely. Definitely.
All right. You have anything else to add, Kim?
No.
Council? Questions for Kim? Mayor Tom?
I guess one thing to point out, if there's a need to increase this position to full-time, which I don't question that there probably is to do that, given that we have Pat working as interim clerk, there's a lot of changes that are going to be happening, I think, or I'm assuming anyway, in the next 6 months. And this contributes to that as well. I'd like to see more of a comprehensive approach to identifying, and you mentioned it right in here, upon review of the structure of City Hall staff for this year, is seeing where we can fill in nooks and crannies and maybe having a staff report to kind of help outline the job description for this position and the others that are there, and then the incoming or possible incoming municipal court clerk could possibly be a shared position with another position at City Hall, and I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but if it is, there would be some savings there because the portion of wages would be paid out of the court fund, correct?
Yeah, we've kind of chatted a little bit about the deputy treasurer's position and the municipal court clerk, and I kind of balked a little bit because of the fact that it's the money handling issue. If you have someone who's taking in the fines and taking care of the authority of the fines and forfeitures that may be coming in and ordering the payments going out and setting up the judgments, then you also have the deputy treasurer. If they're one and the same, you start losing that segregation of duty. And so in my mind, as we begin to look at this, we've looked at the job description for the deputy treasurer's position, and it's pretty comprehensive to where it is at this moment in time. We had, as the council, looked at this in 2015, Patrick, was it? It hasn't been that long ago that we went through and kind of revised it. So it is a current job description for what's going on at this moment in time. But I do think, we have talked that we need to sit down and kind of look at the schematic of the entire office and some efficiencies that might be in other places that can, obviously help in others, so.
Yeah, I think having a simple one-page organizational chart of City Hall and why we need to adjust here, adjust there, would just kind of help us guide through all these things that are going to be coming at us this year. Yeah.
I think we have a meeting on tap for 10:30 tomorrow to talk about that. So
that's great, and I think the appropriate way to look at this too is, you have to have, if you're going full time, you have to throw those numbers out and get them in front of the council and see how that's going to change things here. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So at this point, what are you looking for the council to do tonight?
I think what I take back is we're going to do our review of the City Hall staffing situation with a feel good about Deputy Treasurer's status, and we'll be bringing that back then for further review.
Okay. Questions for Patrick or Kim? Oh, Kim's got something else.
I just want to kind of piggyback on, just so I understand, because I want to start the hiring process as soon as possible, because just the timelines of getting an ad out there and having it out there for a fair amount of time for people to be able to apply, going through the hiring process, the background checks, that person giving their employer at least 2 weeks' notice, and then getting them in here in time to train, puts us at a pretty tight timeline. So what I'd like to be able to do is literally begin advertising the position as soon as possible. And so I just wanted the blessing that full-time is something that the council is comfortable with.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
I feel like the right way to memorialize that is doing what we've been doing, is just approving the job description and saying, yeah. So I mean, if you're comfortable with the current job description and you feel like that's good enough moving forward, can we just approve that and say, yeah, we think, you've addressed any concerns moving forward, but then we could formalize it in some way? Does that make sense?
Are you looking for specific direction that it can be a full-time position? Okay. What's the will of the council? Any concerns making this a full-time position?
It sounds like I have no problem doing that, and I think that as you get into that process and you're doing your review of staff, you're simply looking at, are there efficiencies we can make between what maybe were 2 people going into this new full-time position? So reducing redundancy, but I don't think that necessarily has to impact the idea of hiring a staff person full-time. They're either going to take on extra work that's already there, or even extra work that's not being done by this position currently.
Okay. Any other comments? So you feel like you got a good direction? Right. Oh, Trina? Okay. Yeah, I didn't see anybody chomping at the bit to be against it, so, okay. Next up, number 14, consider and discuss driveway waivers for properties along James Street post-construction. The issue relates to the management of driveway widths on, for properties along James Street that came out as a part of the construction. After the project, several driveways were identified that did not comply with the city code. They were either too wide, a dual driveway, or other imperfections. So they're looking at us to do one sweeping waiver for all of those properties. Is that? I guess I have questions, but do you have something?
The intent and the goal here is a couple of different things. Similar to what the DOT did when they came through for the James Street project, they identified a bunch of encroachments that were structures and things that were lying within the right-of-way that they allowed to stay there instead of requiring them to be moved. That's what gave the city staff the idea of doing the same thing with driveways. There are several driveways along the James Street corridor that don't meet the requirements of the ordinance, and technically those driveways should have been brought into compliance with the ordinance when they were all ripped up. And instead of requiring the landowners to do all of that, we thought it would be better to go the opposite direction and let the driveways stay where they are, because it's historically they've been that way for many, many years. And number two, memorialize that fact that the city was allowing them to stay there, so that when somebody moves or sells their property, there's not a question of how did that driveway get like that in the first place. So the purpose of the document is basically to put something on record that says you have a driveway that does not comply. The city knows that. The city consents to that being there. Don't worry about it. It's okay. If you have to change your driveway in the future, you will then bring it into compliance at a later date. So city staff is looking at this as basically benefiting the property owners. to eliminate a series of questions that might come up down the road.
Do we have any idea why this wasn't identified during the project?
Oh, it was.
It was identified before the project?
Right,
or-
it was identified as the project was going along, and it was identified that this was the path that we were going to follow from the beginning.
Okay. Looks like there's a 22 or so properties.
21.
21. 21 properties.
One of which is city property.
Yeah, I see that. All right. So Paul's provided a waiver document for the non-conforming driveways. Anybody have questions on that? Any issues with moving this forward? Seeing none? Okay.
Thank
There
you.
you go. And bring
Thank
that
you.
to the next regular meeting. And next up, number 15, continued discussion and review of slow-moving vehicle regulations and the proposed ordinance. As discussed at the previous meeting, we had asked for a map and of what these designated routes would look like, the designated golf cart route would look like. So it is here for review, along with the rest of the ordinance. There's several pages.
As I mentioned, when this was first introduced, this is the kitchen sink approach to this ordinance. So it's all encompassing and set up that way so that you could see the kind of the Cadillac version, and then you could streamline it if you wished, or you could leave it alone if you wished.
Okay. And on the map provided, the blue would be the only roads that the golf carts be allowed on, correct?
As currently drafted, yes.
As currently drafted. And the yellow would be any state highways that could not be crossed or could not or be driven on. Like you can't cross Highway 89, right? Because the only reason I ask is because right now the golf course at Kestrel Ridge, they cross. There's a tunnel below the road, but they still cross above as well. So I just want to make sure that.
I believe you can cross. I believe you can cross a highway. Right.
25 or less, or less than 25? 25 or less? So, I mean, this is very limiting.
Mm-hmm.
So why couldn't someone that lives on Charles Street be a part of the route? Or just any street up in that neighborhood, because all the speed limits are 25 in these areas. So you just have to cross you're just crossing a highway with less than 25 or less than, I mean, essentially your whole town could be the golf cart route. I didn't bring that with me. Just a thought.
I don't want to talk.
All right.
Jesse won't let me turn it off.
All right, Mayor Tom?
I think to address some of your concerns, Andy, as I've said before, the intent is not to have a blanket ordinance that covers every inch of the city of Columbus. There's going to be appropriate and inappropriate places where you could possibly even attempt to get a golf cart too. But I think the registration process is something that you can utilize in that. If you come to register your cart and you have to have proof of ownership, and you're going to a golf course as well, I think there's going to be some requirement put in there as well that this isn't for leisure. Which golf course are you going to, and where do you live at? And you look at the map, and if there's no possible way for you to get from point A to point B without breaking the law somewhere in there by driving down a state highway, you can't register your cart.
Sure, but when I look at this map, if you live on like the Highview area or Faith Drive or and Circle or Court or whatever that is back there, that's very likely that someone that would want to play golf could simply, I think they do it now. They could cross that, Park Avenue, and in certain areas, before it goes down to 25, by near the gas station, you should be able. I think
Possible,
identify
as long
that.
as, but I think you have to identify that when you register it, or you need to write that into the ordinance, because if you're applying for it, you have an address. I don't know if golf carts have to be registered, Paul. Do they have a title or not?
They don't have a title, but they have to be registered pursuant to this ordinance.
Okay, so if you can't show the path that you're going to take, which I think should be the shortest possible path from your resident to the golf course, and you can't show that during registration, I don't think you should be issuing a permit to someone that can't possibly do that.
Okay, and maybe this is my mistake, because I'm just simply looking at the map in the blue and assuming that that's the only place that these carts would be allowed. So
That is correct.
Yeah.
Which
the goal was to allow access from a person's home to a golf course without crossing a state highway in violation of the state laws. And when you put all of those things together on a map, that's what you end up with.
There are a few residences on Stewart and Anglesby Street which may even abut the golf course, so they could drive from their private property onto the golf course possibly, but it's not printed in here as part of the route.
Because you're not going on a street.
Correct.
Okay. Regan?
So I guess Andy, I get what you're saying, that there's lots of other streets more central to town that would be able to stay in compliance by merely crossing somewhere where it's 25 miles an hour and not ride along the highway, that aren't included in the current blue. And so Mayor, what you're suggesting is when you go to register, as long as you can point out a compliant route, regardless of what the ordinance currently says about the map dictating the compliant route, you should be able to establish that. And I don't know that that's the intent. I would, first of all, I don't like any of this, so I wouldn't really be supportive. But I would rather have a map that lays out what the route is. That map could be changed from time to time at council. The ordinance then stays the same to say, see the map. Because my concern with this in general is that we have lots of pages of ordinance for something that I don't know that is a high use or high need, but that's just me. And I don't want to get us into the position of having a beautification section for golf carts in the future that no one uses or looks at, that needs to be updated, that's not, so.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
So I guess that begs the question: how do we determine what the route should be? We've got an example here that doesn't run afoul of any of the laws that we know about, but we have to draw a line somewhere, literally, about how far out do we extend that into the city and through the city, where there would be other possible routes that are still compliant.
I feel like using the term route is limiting that. The route's going to be different for every person, and it's not like one consistent road that runs through town that takes you to the golf course. But I believe using the term route in the ordinance kind of assumes that we need to define every possible route for every person.
Well, I would disagree with that because it's like an ATV route. There are roads that you can use and roads that you can't use, and you can use any road to get to a place that the road will allow you to go. So so basically the route is the available streets or paths, or well, not paths, but there are the available streets that you can travel on, and you can connect them up any way you wish.
Well, like route markers 98-323, to procure, erect, and maintain appropriate golf cart route signs and markers for golf cart routes in the city seems like you're going to have to do a whole bunch of work in these areas here, where somebody that lives a block over here can legally get to that, and it doesn't have a marked pole. It seems like a lot of work. So
it's like identifying the snowmobile route. It's the same thing.
I think I said that too.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that issue. That.
So Paul, though, the way we've been presented it, we would need to identify specific roads and a route, like we have here in this map. But you could also have the ordinance just say what Mike is getting at, as long as you don't cross a highway, follow all the other rules that are in place already, you can go anywhere in the city to the golf course. And you just have to get that approved by the city clerk, who would then have to review that route with you.
That would be an absolute nightmare.
Right. I'm looking at nightmare on either way we do it, so that's kind of been my point.
I'm looking at Clerk Gable to my right here, getting ready to hit me if I said that was a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea. I didn't mean to say it was a good idea. I guess I'm pointing out we either do it one way or the other, and I don't like either of them.
Subsection C under registration application, the application for registration shall be made to the Columbus Police Chief. I mean, there's an application process before the registration fee, but I think that's where law enforcement can.
That's to register the operational unit itself, not to, if you don't like the word route, you can call it a route. No, I'm just kidding. if you don't like the word route, you can change that to go kind of where Regan was going by basically saying you can drive on these streets, but you can't drive on these streets, and you can just leave it at that if you want to. I think it would be a bad practice and a administrative nightmare to allow somebody to come in and say, here's where I live and I can get here, Chief of Police, I can get here by going through these 14 streets over here to get to the golf course, even though I live over on Maple Avenue or something like that. That would be a bad idea. This is going to be geographically limited simply because of the way that your highways go through the city. It just is. So if your true goal is to give people who live over by the golf course the ability to get to the golf course, this accomplishes that goal. If your true goal is something else, then
No, I think
it doesn't.
I think this addresses the issue. I think that the people that are near the golf course that have their own golf carts and they're allowed to go directly to a golf course for golfing. I mean, I don't even, well, I'm not going to say that. I think that you've covered everything extensively. You said the kitchen sink, and there's a lot to go through, but I think you can still refine some of that as well as far as the time of day or dawn to dusk. That it should be clearly stated that the intent is for the purpose of golfing, and that this isn't a recreational vehicle that you can drive around town or go grocery shopping, and that's not the intent.
You will see that. So just to let you know.
What's the forfeiture or fine spelled out in here?
For the retirement community in no time.
I think I saw it was like on the last page, maybe. Yeah, $100.
It's $100 right now, which means that my guess is that local law enforcement would probably start around 30. plus cost, which would be $98.80.
How did you base this number off here? Is this just what you've seen in other?
Picked it right out of the sky.
Okay.
That, to be very honest.
Paul, did you say you can or cannot cross a highway?
I believe you cannot.
Okay.
I thought you said you could.
Well, no, you can at certain speed limits. And I left the materials sitting on my desk, of course, so I can't, I'm going by memory, but there are certain highways that you can cross and certain that you can't, which is part of the reason that that map is drawn like that map is drawn.
Because I was basing my answer off of 25 or less. Because when I look at that map and I see, okay, well, that person on Highview or Ridgeline up there, you're looking at, crossing the highway right there. But that would be at 35. But if they lived on the other end down by Tower, let's say, they could go right down Inglesby, which I think is at that road that goes back to the golf course. I could just cross there and go to that golf course. But that's why I was wondering the
map that you're looking at and the definitions in the ordinance are created by two people who don't live in Columbus, looking at a Google Earth computer screen. So that's how we got where we got, and. If there's a few other places that we missed, then that certainly is, that would be why.
Sure. You have something else, Mike?
No.
Other Mike's? Okay. I guess I would have to see this, I would like to see this refined more. I mean, kind of in agreement with Regan here at this point. I don't necessarily think I would be in favor of doing this with the limitations that are there. So I mean, unless we come up with a better route, I would be less in favor of it. Well, then people are going to be driving on the sidewalks. Okay. Any other? I know this is Mayor Tome's, was brought to Mayor Tome by a resident, so.
I haven't had time to dig into the finer language of it because I've been busy with other things, but I would appreciate at least having the ability to go through and maybe alter some language or see if there's some tweaks. But for the most part, I'm not unhappy with what this is at this point. I mean, I knew all along this was not going to be permission to go out as far as you can. I think there's some reasonable argument that goes with it, but you have to start somewhere. Sure. We do have 2 golf courses in town. One hopefully is going to be purchased by a new owner soon, and we have the city golf course, which I think is struggling as well. And the intent of the resident that contacted me is putting something on the books to reflect what's already happening. And the fact of the matter is it's happening already. So I'd like to be able to allow someone to do something legally if they're willing to do that, and then you have to enforce that. The people that are not complying with this or not registering their golf carts we need to start enforcing that. That was the intent.
Okay. Clark?
Would it be easier, well, I mean, you still have the highway issue, but would it be beneficial to identify a proximity to the golf course?
Draw a circle.
Yeah.
Around it. You could do that.
You could still live within that circle, and there would be no physical way for you to get there. That's the
Oh,
problem.
I understand that, but
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a, yeah.
Trina?
Yeah, I was kind of picturing more of a triangle between Park and River Road, just a huge triangle as long as it's not crossing the highway. Otherwise, I don't know if we would want to think about a golf crossing sign at one single point on Farnham. I'm not quite sure exactly where it would be, 25, maybe by water, but I don't know if that'll work.
is appreciated. I feel like we're still pretty early in the stage in this. I think I'm fine with giving the mayor and council more time to look at this and refine it. It is still January.
I thought it was, it's not in the front burner.
Right.
Taken several times in the middle of winter, so.
Yeah. Clark?
No, I think without doing something like proximity or something like that, or, I mean, I think the problem is the snowmobile trail issue where it's, well, if I can do it here, why can't I do it over there? So if there would be some way to contain it, and I know that this is a discussion that's probably going to last for a bit, but I would like to see some sensibility to it, where it's basically somewhere near the golf course. Not that, like you said, someone's coming over from Charles Street, rolling down.
Sure. Yeah, Trina?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing that I don't think we're really on a time crunch now. The same resident that contacted Tom had contacted me to let me know that the first opportunity to get your membership in is in January, so I think we've already missed it. For those that might want to, reserve a spot for their cards, it would have been already.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess at this point we'll bring this back again for more discussion, and we'll work with Mayor Tome to figure out when we'll do that and what changes he has, and I'm sure we could certainly give him our thoughts at the next time we bring it up. So yep. Anything else? Thank you, guys. Yeah, just slide it in between your 3:30 and your 4 o'clock appointments. All right. Finally, we have number 16. Discuss options to fill vacant District 1 aldermanic seat. That was vacated by Kasha Millar when she moved out of the district. Looks like she resigned in December 14th, and Paul has so kindly given us what our options are. I don't know if you can summarize that for us, Paul, please.
Appoint somebody.
Okay.
And the manner in which you choose to do that is up to you. And lately, the last couple of times, you've been allowing people to apply for the position and going from there. You can certainly do that again. You don't have to, but you certainly can if you're looking for somebody who might be interested. But it's an appointment by the council. It's not an appointment by the mayor subject to confirmation by the council. It's appointment by the council.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we haven't had anybody even show an interest in running for the public office, so I really don't know what anything else we could do but appoint somebody. I mean, the language is a little fuzzy here on any special elections, but we can't get somebody to. We didn't have anybody apply to be in the regular election, so why would anybody apply to be in the special election?
Well, you're not at a point where a special election is an option at this particular minute. It will be later, but it's not right now. If you're looking to fill the seat soon, which I assumed that you were.
Yeah. The other thought I had is if someone does end up, say, running a write-in campaign, and there's more than one, we could take a look at it at that point and see if there was interest in appointing after that election. Right. If there are two people that were interested, we could certainly take a look at that. But I don't know. It's up to the council. Anybody?
There's no timeline on filling the spot. I mean, it's more of a quality than quantity
Because the district does have representation until April with Regan.
You can appoint her after she's done.
You could try.
Yeah. I didn't know that way. You could probably do that. Regan?
It wouldn't fly very far, but you could certainly try.
I don't. I think we've in the past at least put it out in some sort of a press release that the city is seeking interested parties. I know I've been talking it up. We've talked about it here. I know people on council have been thinking about it, but at this point, it wouldn't hurt to reinforce the message to the city and to people in the district that not only are we looking to potentially appoint somebody to fill the term that was vacated, but, in the spring, there's going to be nobody representing the district. And to continue to talk about getting interested people to come and see what this is about. So I guess what I'm getting at is I would support putting out some sort of a statement to say we're globally looking for people who are interested in from District 1 to step in and globally.
Within the district.
Yes. See if you want to do it,
Globally within the district.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Mayor Tone?
I think we've probably appointed 4 people since I've been on the council, and each one has been unique. And the one that's unique here is that this resignation came probably about a week later than it should have, or we would have that possibility on the ballot as well. Not that that would have produced any different results than we have right now. I'm not sure of that. But due to the timing of an upcoming election, I would like to, I'm not against putting out a message of encouragement, but as Paul said, it's about quality, not quantity. And I would like to see some people hopefully come in and do a registered write-in campaign, express some sort of interest, and put forth a minimal effort to do that rather than send an application to us to convince us that they should be appointed by 5 people rather than getting their name on the ballot or having 20 people write their name onto a ballot on April 2nd. I just think this is different because we have that impending election right in front of us, and that hasn't happened in any of the other appointments that we've done. So I don't like to have a vacancy, and I don't like any district to be underrepresented, but we don't have anybody on the ballot right now. So I think that the district's going to have to try to come together and see if they can't maybe get behind someone as a registered write-in candidate, but I'm not in a terrible hurry. It puts more pressure on the council right now because you have the risk of a quorum when you're one person short. So it's up to the council. You're going to be making the appointment. I don't get a vote, but that's, I think, the difference between what we've done in the past and what we're looking at this time.
Thoughts? Anybody?
I suppose I'm not seeing any rush until April. But I do like the idea of putting out some sort of, newspaper notice, just as a reminder ahead of that.
I mean, it could simply also just state if you're interested in finding out how to go about a write-in or want to talk to people about what it's like to be on council. I think just drumming up general interest in involvement is, and then making it clear that we've got some openings coming up.
It's too bad the council's not having an upcoming listening session where people could come and discuss that with council members.
Oh, Mayor Tome, in fact, we are.
When is that,
Next
Andy?
Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the library annex. Yeah, I was a little surprised we didn't have anybody, get signatures to be on the ballot. There's certainly a lot of opinions on the internet about how the city's doing, so this was their chance to make a difference, and we didn't see anything. So
why don't we work, Andy, with you to create a press release to throw out to help promote the listening session next week to encourage people that are curious that want to come and talk to us and find out about the scope of work. Attendance varies every time we do one of these, but I think that's the perfect example for anybody interested in either running as a write-in candidate or being appointed.
Yeah,
it's another way to promote the listening session. throw it on the city website. Maybe we can get Kevin to put something in the paper. I don't know if it'll be too late this week. I heard he might be out of town actually right now. I don't know if that's true, but if we can get the word out on social media.
Or any other media entities that might be in the room. All right, yeah, I'm okay with that. If I'll work with Patrick and the mayor, maybe get some ideas. Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts? Let's just maybe just hang back a little bit and see what happens with this, and we can. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some interest at the very least. If it's not at the listening session, but overall we can get some news, get the news out that we certainly could use the help, and certainly shouldn't go unfilled for too much longer. So, but I'm okay if it's has to be until the election. I'm fine with that. So, any other comments on this? Okay. Next up, then I would have a look for a motion to adjourn. Okay, was there, did you do both, or was there actually? Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, guys.